I am Alabama Sam Englehart, also Executive Secretary of the Citizens Council of Alabama. We are dedicated to the preservation of segregation.
We will segregate the buses, and if necessary, I shall arrest every agent of the federal government who attempts to conspire to put across integration of race.
Those very old, very amazing clips live today in the NBC News archives. They're indexed under the term Citizens Council. The old white segregationist group is in the news now in 2010 because now in 2010, a man who wants to be president in 2012 this week praised the influence of the Citizens Councils on segregation-era Mississippi, where he was born and raised and where he's now governor. Haley Barbour telling the Weekly Standard, quote, "You heard of the Citizens Councils? Up north, they think it was like the KKK. Where I come from, it was an organization of town leaders." Haley Barbour's spokesman initially tried denying that the governor had ever said the thing that he said. The spokesman said, quote, "Governor Barbour did not comment on the Citizens Council movement's history. He commented on the business community in Yazoo City, Mississippi." When that caused coffee to shoot from the noses of blog readers everywhere, many keyboards were ruined. Haley Barbour decided instead that he would eat crow. He said on his website, quote, "The Citizens Council is totally indefensible, as is segregation." Because Haley Barbour would like to be president, getting it on the record that he thinks the Citizens Council, as he said, is totally indefensible, that is probably mandatory for him. That's because the history of the Citizens Council in his hometown in Yazoo City is clear, and it is ugly, and it is all over the internet. In 1955, for example, there was a petition to the school board in Yazoo City for integration. In response, the Citizens Council took out a big advertisement in the town paper. It listed the names of the people who had signed the petition for integration. This is the council's ad here. It was reprinted in a 1955 report about Yazoo City in the Afro-American newspaper. We saw this linked in the comments on Huffington Post, actually. When you're asking for integration in 1950s Mississippi and the Citizens Council posts your name all over town, one account says they even propped this list up in cotton fields around town. When you're one of those people who dared to ask for equal treatment, and this is the response from those town leaders and the Citizens Council, what do you think happens to you if your name's on this list, huh? Quoting from the article in the Afro-American, many signers have been penalized by loss of employment. Under this pressure, some have removed their names from the petition. J.H. Wright, a plumbing contractor listed above, lost 2 construction jobs, was refused plumbing supplies by a wholesale house, and his grocer told him a loaf of bread would cost him $1. He plans to move elsewhere. He plans to move elsewhere, destination unknown, anywhere but Yazoo City. Because that organization of town leaders Haley Barbour praises for helping Yazoo City integrate peacefully and all, that organization has run this man out of town. By 1988, the Citizens Council had become the Council of Conservative Citizens. Their links to the anti-immigration people pushing SB 1070 in Arizona helped them make our TV show back in April. We have the picture of the website here, Council of Conservative Citizens. Yes. Erectus walks among us. It's a sort of mock-up between a black person and an ape. They also have this summary of a recent Al Sharpton interview. Quote, "Sheriff Arpaio debates the nappy-headed race hustler." That's the current incarnation of the Citizens Council Mr. Barbour so fondly remembered before he then roundly condemned it. The Council of Conservative Citizens is now mounting a boycott of the movie Thor because the movie makers cast an African American as a god. Fetishizers of Norse gods will get you for that. You might think Haley Barbour, defender of peaceful integration, would want nothing to do with a group like this, but you would be wrong. Here is Haley Barbour in 2003 making a campaign stop at a barbecue hosted by the Council of Conservative Citizens. That's him right there, third from the right. He's standing with the council's field director. I'd like to show you this picture as it originally appeared on the council's website, but as Dave Weigel reported this week, they actually replaced Mr. Barbour's photo on their website with this. The caption is still there from when they had the photo, at least in the old internet archives. But now, instead of the picture of Haley Barbour, they've just put up a big picture of a rebel flag, and it says Confederate wave on it. And no, we did not Photoshop in this giant rebel flag. We did not make this up. This is what they replaced Haley Barbour with on their website. The reason Haley Barbour was visiting with the fine folks of the Council of Conservative Citizens at their barbecue is that it was a fundraiser. He was helping them raise money for a private academy that is sponsored by the council, a private school founded by the Citizens Council as an all-white pro-segregation school. It was led for many years by the same Citizens Council field director that Haley Barbour was standing with in that disappeared picture. I don't want to show you the faces of the kids who go to that school now, because where they go to school is not necessarily their choice. But here's the faculty. This was founded as a segregated school in Mississippi, specifically to keep white kids safe from integration with black kids. The latest figures from the U.S. Department of Education show that in 2007, this school had 403 students, kindergarten through 12th grade. 2 students were Asian. Everyone else, the other 401, were white. That's what Haley Barbour was raising money for in 2003. The Citizens Council all-white school founded to keep black kids out that today is still doing it. How is it that Mr. Barbour phrased his clarification this week? The Citizens Council is totally indefensible, as is segregation. As we reported on the show back in September, Mr. Barbour raised 2 sons in Yazoo City. They both went to this private school that admitted its first black student in 1996, when one of his boys was about to graduate. Clearly, Mr. Barbour made some kind of peace with segregation, at least in his own family's life. This story is a bit about whether or not Haley Barbour is going to be the Republican nominee for president. I think he will not be. But there are very powerful forces in Republican politics who really want Haley Barbour to be the party's nominee, or at least a serious contender. And part of the process of making Haley Barbour into a national candidate is making us believe the version of Mississippi, the version of Yazoo City that they have shined up for Haley Barbour's political resume, where the Citizens Councils were the good guys, and white people didn't have a problem with integration. And the transformational social movement and the murderous conflagrations around it that fought segregation, those just weren't that big a deal, and everything's fine now. The problem for Haley Barbour and the Republican Party that wants him to be their presidential nominee is that the rest of us get to refuse to go down that memory hole. It is our country, and history is a real thing. Joining us next is the wonderful Melissa Harris Perry, Princeton professor who knows her Southern history and her American racial politics, and I suspect she is not buying Mr. Barbour's version of it. We will be right back.